You know that feeling when you wake up on like a random Tuesday and you just stare at the ceiling and decide right then and there, okay, today's the day I am completely changing my life.
Oh, absolutely. The classic Tuesday morning reinvention.
Right. So you try to adopt this entirely new persona. You download all the productivity apps. You plan out these grueling
You're
workouts.
going to wake up at 4 a.m.
Exactly. You try to become this hyper-efficient machine, but it feels, I don't know, a bit like wearing someone else's suit.
Mm-hmm.
It's stiff. It's restrictive. The sleeves are way too long. And honestly, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you just want to rip it off and put your sweatpants back on.
Because you're trying to force a shape that just isn't yours.
Exactly.
Huh.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a document that actually says that exact feeling of restriction, that exhaustion, is exactly why you're failing.
It's a really common trap, honestly. You're basically trying to bolt a brand new habit or, a completely new identity onto a foundational structure that fundamentally rejects it.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. And, well, from an engineering standpoint, it's the reason why so many attempts at personal transformation simply collapse under their own weight. I mean, people
Right.
rely on brute force, and brute force always has an expiration date.
Which is exactly what brings us to today's source material.
Yeah.
It's this fascinating, almost mystical document. It's titled Engineered Becoming, the Spectrix Forever Framework.
Correct.
And it's presented by Carlton Johnson. He goes by Doc C. Johnson, Ph.D. He's the managing director at the Spectrix Metaphysical Institute. And right out of the gate, he tells the listener something incredibly bold.
Yeah, that opening is wild.
He says, this is not just a conversation. This is an initiation.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because he establishes this mind-bending paradox right in the opening lines. He claims that within this framework, transformation is not about becoming something new. It's about returning to what has always been true.
And that opening really sets the stage. If you look at the tone of the source material, it's incredibly calm, yet deeply authoritative.
Yeah, very steady.
It completely avoids that hyperactive, 10 steps to a new you energy of modern self-help.
Where there's no hustle culture in it.
Exactly. By using the word engineered, and coming from an institute with a name like Spectrix, the text is inviting you, the listener, to look at your own life not as a series of random, chaotic events, but as a tangible system.
An architecture.
Yes, an architecture. And like any system, it can be audited, it can be understood, and it can be engineered. But the crucial distinction Doc C makes here is that you aren't engineering a fabrication.
You're not building a fake persona.
Right. You are engineering the removal of the noise, so the underlying truth, what he actually calls the eternal self, can simply operate.
So to understand how to return to that truth, I mean, we first have to figure out why we feel so stuck in our current reality. Like, why does that ill-fitting suit feel like the only clothes we own? The framework points out a massive misconception right at the start of the journey. Most people falsely believe that their lives are shaped by circumstance.
Oh, for sure. We blame the economy, our bosses.
Our bad luck, our genetics, whatever. But Doc C argues that what is actually shaping our lives is repetition.
Yeah.
It's unseen patterns.
Yeah.
It's unquestioned behaviors that have just solidified into this rigid architecture over decades.
Yes, he uses the specific phrase, unaligned systems.
Unaligned systems.
Right. The text points out a hard truth, which is that momentum is already happening in your life. You're not standing still. You are moving.
But for most people, that momentum isn't intentional, is it?
Exactly. It's inherited. You've picked up ways of reacting to stress from your parents, or you've internalized definitions of success from, I don't know, your culture or your peer group.
Right.
You've developed cognitive coping mechanisms from your childhood, and you just repeat them day after day, year after year, until they form a closed-loop system.
Wow.
And what happens with any closed-loop system is that it becomes incredibly efficient at producing the exact same result over and over again.
And over time, according to the text, this unaligned system builds a version of the self that feels incredibly real. But I have to stop you there and push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because if this misaligned self feels so incredibly real to us, like if it is literally the only version of ourselves we know, how do we even know we're in a misaligned system to begin with?
That's a great point.
I mean, I'm thinking about this concept of inherited momentum, and it feels like driving on autopilot on a highway that someone else paved for you. You're moving fast, the scenery's flying by, but you never actually chose the destination. You're just following the concrete.
Right.
If you've never driven off-road, how do you know the highway isn't where you belong?
What's fascinating here is how the human brain actually processes reality on a neurological level.
Okay.
We are biologically wired for efficiency. The brain consumes a massive amount of the body's energy.
Yeah, it's like 20% or something.
Exactly. So it loves repeated patterns because they require fewer calories and less cognitive load to execute. When a behavior is repeated, the neural pathway gets coded in myelin, which makes the signal travel faster and easier.
So it's literally path of least resistance.
Completely. So when Doc C says this version of the self feels real, he's tapping into a profound biological truth. We mistake neurological efficiency for fundamental identity.
Oh, wow.
We think, I am an anxious person, or I am someone who never finishes projects, simply because those are the neural pathways with the most traffic.
That's the inherited highway.
That's the highway. The danger of inherited momentum is that the sheer speed and ease of your life blinds you to the direction of your life.
Because it's so easy to just keep driving.
Right. It feels real because it has weight and inertia, not because it's your actual eternal truth.
The speed blinds you to the direction.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're listening right now, just think about how often you go through a full day and realize you were basically unconscious for most of your decisions.
It's scary when you actually track it.
It really is. So if we are speeding down this inherited highway on autopilot, and our brains are literally wired to keep us on that road to save energy, how do we hit the brakes without causing a psychological pileup?
Right. You can't just slam the steering wheel.
No, you can't just slam it into oncoming traffic.
Exactly. Which is why Doc C says the process begins with a shift in awareness, not a shift in action.
Awareness, not action.
Yes. When the autopilot disengages, you don't instantly change directions. You simply begin to see that your life is not random. It is highly structured.
You start to observe the feedback loops.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Doxy introduces a really powerful reframe here. He says that when you finally see these patterns, say, I don't know, your tendency to self-sabotage a relationship or procrastinate on a major project, you shouldn't view them as problems.
Right.
You need to see them as signals. They are simply signals of what has been repeated without awareness.
Yeah.
And suddenly, by stepping back, a vision emerges of who you truly are beneath that built system.
This is a vital distinction, especially from an engineering perspective. When we view our behaviors as problems, we tend to judge them. We think, I am broken, I need to fix myself.
And judgment creates shame.
Judgment creates massive emotional stress. And what does the brain do under stress?
It looks for what's easy.
It defaults back to the most highly myelinated, efficient neural pathways, which are the exact bad habits you are trying to break.
Wow, so judging the habit literally reinforces the habit.
Exactly. But when we view them as signals, we become neutral observers. We become systems engineers just looking at data output.
Okay, but let's unpack this idea of treating things as signals, because Doxy gets very specific about how we handle those signals.
He does.
He says that transformation does not begin with force. It begins with alignment, a subtle shift in direction, a new choice, repeated with intention. But I'm sorry, isn't change supposed to be grueling, hard work? I mean, neuroplasticity requires immense effort to wire new pathways.
That's the common belief.
Right, we are incredibly conditioned by this no pain, no gain mentality. Hustle culture tells us that if you aren't, like, grinding your teeth, depriving yourself of sleep, and sweating blood, you aren't transforming.
Yeah.
Is Doc C just selling a comfortable delusion here?
Not at all.
To conceptualize what he's saying about signals versus problems, I'm thinking of a car's check engine light.
Okay, I like this.
If that red light flashes on your dashboard, you don't grab a hammer and smash the light. That would be treating the signal as the problem.
Right, the light is just data.
Exactly. And you certainly don't just push the gas pedal harder to force the car to ignore it. You pull over, you read the signal, and you look under the hood to align the mechanics.
This raises an important question about our societal obsession with force and, frankly, why so many people are burnt out. Doc C is absolutely not selling a delusion. He's arguing for mechanical efficiency.
Right.
He explicitly states that realignment is about integration. It's where thought, behavior, and energy start moving together. Force is only required when things are working against each other. Oh, that makes so much sense.
Let's look at a concrete Tuesday morning example.
Let's hear it.
Say your thought is, I want to wake up at 5 a.m. to work on my novel.
Okay.
But your behavior the night before was doom scrolling on your phone until 1 a.m.
Been there.
And your physical energy is completely depleted. When that alarm goes off, your thought, your behavior and your energy are in completely different time zones.
They're totally unaligned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need massive amounts of sheer brute force willpower just to drag yourself out of bed. That friction is what hustle culture glorifies.
Oh, wow. So you're fighting your own system. You're pressing the gas and the brake at the exact same time and wondering why the engine is smoking.
Precisely. But what Doc C is proposing is a subtle shift in direction to create alignment.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Instead of forcing the 5 a.m. wake-up, you make a subtle, intentional choice to change the nighttime behavior. You put the phone in another room.
You align the behavior with the thought. Yes. Suddenly, the energy starts to return. You are looking under the hood, fixing the timing belt, and suddenly the engine just runs. You don't have to force it.
But it still takes some effort, right?
It still takes intention, sure. Neuroplasticity does require reps, but subtle, intentional repetition of an aligned choice is what builds that progressive integration without all the exhausting friction.
So what does this all mean for the long haul? Because you're aligning the gears so they mesh instead of grind, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But even making those subtle choices requires some conscious energy. Like if you are constantly having to be intentional about putting your phone in the other room or choosing the healthier meal or, pausing before you react in anger.
Right.
How do we actually sustain this without eventually burning out anyway?
That is the crucial pivot in the framework. Doc C writes that as alignment continues, the conscious effort begins to fade, the resistance softens,
It's easier.
and something much deeper takes over. The system begins to carry itself. This is what the Institute calls stabilization.
And he drops what I think is the most provocative line in the entire text right here.
Oh, I know the one.
He says, explicitly, this is not discipline. This is embodiment.
Yes.
You stop trying to become, and you simply express what has always been present. Wait, is Doxy actually saying that needing discipline is a symptom of being misaligned?
That is exactly what he's saying.
Because we are taught that discipline is like the holy grail of success.
It completely upends traditional self-help. We tend to view discipline as the highest human virtue. But from a systems engineering standpoint, think about it. If a machine constantly requires outside intervention, constant monitoring, manual overrides just to keep running.
Which is exactly what human discipline feels like.
Right. If it needs all of that, it's an inefficient, misaligned system. It is fundamentally broken. Embodiment is the phase where the system finally becomes self-sustaining.
Yeah.
The friction drops to zero.
That is wild. But, it makes so much sense when you think about it practically. It's exactly like learning a new language. If you've ever tried to learn Spanish or French, at first, you have to use so much discipline.
Oh, yeah, the flashcards.
You have to force yourself to sit down with those flashcards. And when someone asks you a question in that language, it takes immense cognitive effort to translate their words into your native language in your head, figure out the grammar for your response, translate it back, and finally speak.
It's clunky.
It's incredibly clunky. It's exhausting. It requires massive discipline just to have a basic conversation.
Right.
But eventually, after enough subtle aligned repetitions, the cognitive load drops. You stop translating. You just understand. You just speak.
Exactly.
The language stops being something you do through discipline. It becomes a part of who you are. You've embodied it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, your language analogy perfectly illustrates Doxy's final phase, which is sustained alignment.
Okay.
Once you have embodied this state, once you are fluent in this new way of operating, what is aligned must be reinforced. But it's reinforced not through pressure, but through presence.
Presence, not pressure. I like that.
The text says it requires consistent, intentional action that reflects your underlying truth. To use your analogy, you aren't pressuring yourself to speak the new language anymore. You are simply present in the conversation, naturally using the language.
Right, because it's just who you are now.
Exactly. Swapping pressure for presence is a profound psychological shift. The ultimate goal of the Spectrix Metaphysical Institute's framework is an internal architecture that autonomously carries itself.
Wow.
You don't have to wake up and convince yourself to be a healthy, productive person. You just are. As the text concludes for this section, over time, the new system stabilizes. And what once felt like a change now feels like your identity.
What once felt like change now feels like identity. I mean, if you're listening, think about how liberating that is.
Julie.
You're no longer putting on the ill-fitting suit every morning. You realize that your actual skin is the only thing you ever needed to wear. It's a remarkable way to look at personal growth because it strips away all the guilt and shame we carry about not being disciplined enough or not fighting hard enough against our bad habits.
It completely reframes it.
It just says, hey, your gears are misaligned, you're leaking energy, let's look at the data, read the signals, and gently click the mechanics back into place.
And practically, it removes the absolute panic of feeling like you have to invent a completely new version of yourself from scratch.
Which is so overwhelming.
It is, but you don't have to build a new person. You just have to excavate the eternal self that is already there, waiting for the structural noise of your inherited habits to finally quiet down.
Let's bring this deep dive to a close by looking at Doxy's final summary in the text, because it really acts as a mic drop for the entire framework.
It really does.
He distills everything into 4 powerful, concluding thoughts. He says, momentum was never the goal. Patterns were never the problem. Consistency was never the challenge. The only question that ever mattered was alignment.
It forces a complete audit of how you live your life. It challenges you to stop looking at how fast you are moving, your societal momentum, your career ladder climbing, and instead look at the underlying architecture dictating your direction. Are you just efficiently accelerating toward a destination you never actually chose?
I want to leave you with a final lingering thought to explore on your own as you go about the rest of your day. We've established that your current daily routines are simply an inherited system seamlessly maintaining a version of you. So what specific unseen pattern is quietly running your life right now?
That's the real question.
What is the highway you were driving on that you didn't actually pave? Take a look at your Tuesday morning friction.
And if you're willing to take that audit one step further, consider this.
Okay.
If your true self operates effortlessly once it is finally aligned, it makes you wonder what parts of our modern society, from the apps we use to the corporate ladders we climb, are deliberately designed to keep us misaligned.
Yep.
How much of the world relies on us being exhausted, undisciplined, and constantly searching for the next quick fix, simply because our constant struggle is profitable to them?
Now that is a question worth pulling the car over for. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you. Read the signals on your dashboard. And remember, you don't need a new suit. You just need to return to what has always been true.